Check.
Jim, can you hear us?
No, that would be awesome.
He can't.
I'll tell him.
All right. Here we go. I'm mowing?
Yep.
All right, here we go. One of the more challenging pieces of being a coach is that dopamine hit, that opportunity where you get, like for me, a 15-year-old kid, I want to play college golf, and I'd like to play on tour one day, and then you be like a vessel that takes them across the waters from where they are to where they want to be. Mm-hmm. And yet knowing that you can, like, you always feel like you want to save somebody, like you're trying so hard to help this one person. Mm-hmm. And you get, the water can get pretty murky sometimes when you're dealing with somebody that's looking to prey upon an empathetic coach or an empathetic person who all they ever really do is do everything they can to help somebody. What have you gleaned off of your life and trying to recognize the difference between a true dreamer and a narcissistic pariah looking to annihilate somebody in front of them?
Yeah, man. That's a really good question. Congrats to your son, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
On his success, man. And signing with Methodist U, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, that's incredible.
I'm super excited for him.
So you saw it not only in who you coach, but you've seen it with your son. And, I mean, I think at the end of the day, there's like 8 or 9 challenging people in the world. And sometimes they just seem to pop up every now and again. And everybody else is a really great person. The way I've thought about it is this way. 98% of people are great people. And then you got 1% that are the warriors of the 1% that are the enemy.
Yeah.
And that's just the way that I view it. So every now and again, you're going to bump into those challenges. And I think that leveraging intuition and trusting the process, spending time with people up front enough, you're always going to get an interesting egg every now and again. Like your son was probably one of the best kids you've ever coached. I mean, I'm sure there were challenging times like there is anytime you're coaching somebody. But as far as his devotion and his love for the game, like you can separate the wheat from the chaff. You can separate the all-stars from the ones who aren't. And I think it's the understudy of saying what separated them. Like I love working with athletes as a coach and as a consultant, because people who come from an athletic background just have a totally different mindset about how things work. Mm-hmm. One of my rules is, you kind of got the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes down to working with clients. And this will go the same for even if you're coaching in golf or do something different. The good ones are willing to play by your rules. So that's a primary thing. They're willing to play by your rules. Typically, they came from a good referral source. So there's a know, like, and trust factor there that's strong, or they're interconnected in your community in some way, shape, or form. And then the last one, if I can remember it, is that, they're qualified. So they're qualified to work with you, meaning whatever your qualifications are. And this is really on understanding your audience and your avatar. The bad client has all 3, but typically, maybe they weren't referred the right way, as an example, but they have the other 2 things. Now, the ugly ones are the ones who are unwilling to play by your rules. And let's say they may be qualified, they have all the money in the world, but they're not willing to play by your rules, and they maybe weren't referred to you the right way. And so it's separating, and this is a sales technique, but it's separating and knowing that, like, usually 33% are going to be ugly, 16% will be bad, and then whatever the leftover percentages are will usually be the good ones. Mm-hmm. So it's like 3 to 4 out of every 10 are the ones that are perfect for you to work with. And it's just the understudy. What did the people do that you loved working with, who got the best results? And then what were the people like on the other side who didn't get the result and they turned into the villain? It's the drama triangle of life. Whenever we're trying to hero someone, the hero always needs a villain, or a victim, excuse me. The hero always needs a victim, because the victim is in need of the hero, and that's where the energy it's a trauma bond, technically.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
So what happens is most people who are in a victim mentality, when they want to work with someone who's a coach or a consultant or whatever, most of them, if they don't get whatever the intended result was, or even if they do, even if they quit on themselves and then they're found in a position of where they're like, I'm just going to be an asshole, well, what happens? They move to villain. Victims will always turn into villains, and villains will always vilify the hero who came to save them. Because underneath the psychology of it, what they truly believe is that without you, they can't do it, which causes resentment. They think that you believe that, and in addition, they believe it themselves. So when they're incapable because they're in a I need you versus how can we co-create together. Love the equation of marriage. You bring 100, I bring 100, not 50-50.
Yeah.
I don't have to say like, oh, my spouse is everything to me. No, we can work hard on completing each other based on all of our talents, gifts, abilities, our mindset, our desires. We can blend all of those together and run in the same direction. But we've both got to give 100%. And I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, and it's so, this is an interesting point. Like over a long period of time, when you're working with somebody or married, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're because we evolve as humans over time through our experiences. There are certain things that people go through that cause them to go in different directions.
Yep.
And I think that's one of the bigger challenges that we're not doing a good job coaching kids / adolescents / college people. Mm-hmm. Is like this thing called marriage or this thing called a relationship. It could be a professional relationship, sport, a loved one, etc. It sounds good to look for the pretty girl or the wealthy guy or the strong guy. It sounds good to be chasing the exterior of things. Mm-hmm. But as time rolls on, everybody's looks wane. Mm-hmm. And you're left with what is be considered the fundamentals of life. Mm-hmm. And in the fast-paced world, the Instagram world that we live in, and is getting faster and worse, we've lost touch with what it really takes to be a good team. Mm-hmm. And that goes for sports, business, and family life, right?
That's well said, yeah.
What's your antidote to that problem?
I mean, I think the antidote to 99% of things is just telling the truth.
That's so true.
It comes down to honesty. And I think that the best way to cure the suppression of the voice, which is typically what the challenge is, the symptom is, I don't want to be unbelievably honest and transparent with this person because I don't want to hurt their feelings. So I'll just keep living a lie. Mm-hmm. And usually in a team or in relationships or whatever, there's not the depth of that pocket change that's been developed, or that's waned over time. And so cutting to I'm going to be direct, but in the most loving way that I'm capable of being, which is with compassionate curiosity and humility, is to just tell the truth. This is what my experience is, or this is an observation that I had, not a you statement. Like, it comes down to such practical ways of communication of like, hey, this is something that I'm observing. Help me understand it. We miss curiosity and problem solving now because everything's accusatory. It's all like, I saw this post today. It was like, listen, we're in the corporate world. We're not in the military. Like, mm-hmm. Not everything is mission critical, right? Like, we're dealing with Outlook and Excel, not tanks and, javelin missiles. So like, everybody just needs to chill the hell out a little bit.
Yeah.
And there's a truth to that in the sense that, like, when we're so mission critical, we sacrifice people for the mission. And in a long-term relationship, you can't do that. You have to find common ground. You have to be patient and understanding. Mm-hmm. You have to defer sometimes even what you might think or feel about a situation in order to allow someone else to catch up and observe. And, in a lot of really great relationships, you see people taking on this stance of like this unbelievable amount of transparency and honesty and camaraderie and brotherhood, whatever those elements are in the circumstance that someone's in. I think at the end of the day, it's just like, just tell the damn truth.
Yeah. It's so funny. Like, one of my favorite shows of all time is Ted Lasso.
Yeah. And
in that super famous scene where they're throwing darts, he hit me with a sledgehammer, which is, when he was growing up, this and this happened. And all he realized is that they weren't curious. They were just judgmental. Mm-hmm. Be curious. And I was like, man, now that is, of all the things that I would explain, like how I've gotten to where I am, I've always been way more curious with my interrogations mm-hmm. than I have been judgmental.
Yeah.
Because everybody's, by largely, most people, even if they're errantly guided, mm-hmm. they're trying their best with what they have.
Certainly.
So I'm not overly judgmental about just about anything.
Yep.
I'm more like, what made you go down that road? Why would you think that? And then, like, once they tell me that, then I'll ask them, instead of maybe indicting the person who gave mm-hmm. them the bad info, mm-hmm. I'd be more inclined to ask them to think about it in another way, and knowing that this person was trying their best with what they knew, but now we've come to a crossroads.
Yep.
So you have to choose between, new information or this old information that you already know the actual answer to, but change is scary for a lot of people, especially when you've poured X amount of hours, days, months, years into an incorrect thought.
Yeah.
That really hurts. It hurt me in many ways, finding out that everything that I was taught as a teenager about the golf swing is not really what happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's just what somebody felt.
Yep.
And then to find out that, oh man, I've only hit about 500,000 golf balls doing it wrong. That was a really humbling experience, which that moment is what turned me into a coach.
Of course.
Where I said, there is no way somebody's going to pay me to help them and they're going to get bad information.
That's right.
And I went on a massive deep dive search for, golf has its own windows or parameters of greatness. There's no such thing as the way.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I just tried my best to become an expert in the few ways and then figure out what that person can bring to the table best under duress, which is really more important than anything.
That's true.
And then go there. And so I would imagine what I'm doing when it comes to teaching golf and helping people achieve greatness, if you change the words, generally speaking, you're following the same process and system that it takes to help somebody as an entrepreneur as you're helping them with their marketing and or sales.
Yep.
Talk to me about your approach to taking somebody like Virgil walks in and he says, I've been teaching for 25 years, been on the Golf Channel, got 2 podcasts, 3 books, and I have a very large client list, but I'm the one-man band. Yeah. Everything is locked up in between these 2 ears. You can't really sell anything else other than what's inside of that.
Yeah.
How would you take me from over here, like, help me to get to the other side of the dream?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to save that question for 2 seconds. I gotta point out an observation of something that you mentioned because it shows your skill and your mastery of being a coach. The best coaches in the world ask better questions. Mm-hmm. And that's something that you were pointing to, which is curiosity is the prompting of a question because it's not seeking whatever the assumption is that person knows. They know if they ask that question back to the individual that it prompts the thought in their mind, which leads them down the place of where they last ended. And so I had a great coach in my life one time ask me the question of, Nick, why did you say WTF to this situation? I want you to reframe that in the future and say, what caused this? And I was like, oh, dude, you are a slayer. Like, you get it on a whole nother level because when you say what caused this, you're not deferring responsibility. Mm-hmm. You're actually assuming responsibility then to reflect, and reflection creates the opportunity for integration where you can integrate new lessons are learned. Otherwise, the lesson is voided, and then you just have to take the test again. So it was so masterful in this question, and I can see that that's part of the curiosity equation for you, is when you have curiosity, you can lead the person to the resolution that gets them to the next level. And that, my friends, is a sign of coaching mastery right there. So I want to celebrate you for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome, man. And I'll answer the question about how do I take somebody who's a brilliant expert at what they do and where they have all that information locked up in their mind and going like, how do we take someone like that to the next level? At the end of the day, I think a lot of the coaching industry, consulting industry, they all have it wrong. And it's an external, internal equation, meaning follow my system, my process, do what I tell you to do, and then you're going to get the result. I believe it's the other way around. My job as a coach, consultant, as a confidant, even inside of a business as a chief marketing officer, my goal is to go internal on them and then pull it out, then sort the deck, then reposition. So it's not just adopt my model and my process and do what I tell you to do and you're going to get this result, because it's much more complex than that. The reality is you tell me what you want. Tell me where you're at. What are your hangups and your hiccups and these points that are causing friction for you? Then we're going to build from the inside out. And so that's primary number one. If I'm working with an expert, I'm like, you've got to have a 10 out of 10 skill. If you do, that's the starting point. But here's what I can tell you, Virgil, with 100% clarity, and I know this. If someone wants to have a profitable, fulfilling, sustainable business, there's 3 primary things they have to have after having an epic skill set. They have to have a clear offer, which most people don't. They have like 27 offers and they're trying to figure out all these different lanes. I'm looking for one stream, one offer. Okay, great. Now that we nail that one offer, and by the way, it just needs to explain that they're going to get this result in this much time, or it needs to explain 3 steps and how you're going to do it really clear. Mm-hmm. Like there's books and books written about this stuff. I will tell you, I'm a syndicator. I'm going to take all that. I'm going to synthesize it, syndicate it, spread out that message in its most simple form. You just need to understand the result and in the time. I'm going to help you lose 20 to 40 pounds in 40 days or less. Or you do the other equation, which is the how, which is I'm going to interview you, create your content for you, and publish it for you and it's $1,000 a month. Psychological trigger. Most people just want to sound sexy versus simple.
Yeah.
That's where they get lost, right? Lost in the sauce. So experts have this habit of they can't explain their way out of the brown paper bag because they think that their skill set is the thing that people are buying. That's the thing that gets their attention. The thing that gets them to buy is a mental and or psychological trigger that says, that makes sense to me and that sounds fair.
Yeah.
So primary offer, that's the first thing I work with people on who have an epic skill set. The second thing is lead generation. If you don't have a great offer, you're not generating leads because you have no confidence in your ability to attract the right people to you and close them because there's no bridge. Great skill. Now, how do I get people to see it? So what do? Post content on a bunch of different platforms, just this spray and pray type of mentality of I just hope someone hears something, sends me a message, and I just hope that something's going to happen. That's not how we build profitable, fulfilling, sustainable businesses. I love, hope dealer, right? Like I love that as a philosophy and a concept of life. But when you're building a business, you need, profitability, you need fulfillment, you need sustainability. So the lead generation thing that's where I spent a lot of my career. I mean, that's how I've done $500 million for other people is primarily through bridging the gap on lead generation. And the miracle's in the middle. So you got offer, leads, right? And then the finish line is sales. No one has to take any sales training. I'll give you this most simple 5-step sales process that you can use today that will help you close an incredible amount of deals. And this is what I do with people. I teach them this process, and I do it on a commission-only basis, which is amazing. So if I'm working with an expert, this is how this goes. And I go like, okay, 5 steps to closing a $500,000 deal. And I know this because I've done it. And it took me about, 7 or 8 minutes. I'm dead serious. This is how it works. Number 1, where are you now? Explain to me your current state. And you got to have like the rapport building skills to not like let someone feel like they're being pulled into some scenario, some sales call. So I keep it really chill. I'll just go like, what's up, dude? How's life? What's cracking? That's like my classic line when I talk to somebody. Immediately, if they had swords in their hand, they've laid them down.
That's right.
And they're like, I'm talking with a friend. And that's how I position myself. Like for me, I have to have the integrity and the ethics to be able to have really high mastery in my ability to sell people things that are good for them. And that's how I view it. If it's not good for them, I won't. I'm like a doctor. I'm not going to give you a script that's not for you. But if you have a challenge, if you have an issue, I'm going to help you with it. So the first thing is where you at now. The second thing is where do you want to be? It's the future. The third thing is a gap. Okay, so what's the gap? You're here now. You want to be here. What's in the way? What's the gap? And they'll say all these different things. And by the way, using the doctor's frame, people explain their symptoms a million different ways. You could stub your toe, get hit in the head with a baseball bat, or slam your knee in your car door. And everyone's looking for something that will reduce inflammation and pain. Ibuprofen's the solution. So the solution is static when the symptoms have mass variability. So you just have to understand, okay, this is the problem. This is where they're at. This is where they want to be. What's the gap? Well, they don't have access to the things that they want. So for you, it would be, I need one really, really clear offer that's going to push people through that's based on the highest, most profitable skill that I have. Number 2 would be lead generation. I have to have a way to get unlimited leads. I can never allow my skill or my expertise to be sitting in the corner getting dusty because I don't have a way to consistently get my message in front of the right people at the right time in order for them to convert and to say, yes, that this is what I want. I feel that it is an ethical sin to do that. I carry a lot of conviction around that because I think that if Elon Musk did that, how would our world be today? If he took his greatest skill set and just put it over in the corner and didn't do the things required to get where he wanted to go, we have an ethical responsibility to find the way. I believe that. So what's the gap? You identify the gap and I summarize it. Okay, great. So it sounds like to me you need to nail your offer. You need to have a way to get unlimited leads. And you need a really simple sales process so that people can just very simply buy into the things that they want that are good for them that you offer. Does that sound fair?
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, okay, great. Now here's the magic question. I call this the AIV, the assumed integrated or implementable value of what I can do for you. So we'll go through the scenario. Where are you now? Where do you want to be? What's the gap? Let's say we say the gap is I need a clear offer, I need unlimited leads, and I need a simple sales process. Great. My question to you is, what is that worth? Assuming we were able to solve that 3-step problem, what would that be worth to you?
Wow. Could be millions. But more than anything, more control over my time, which is the actual key to life.
Yep.
Because I can, money, I'm going to lose money and gain money, lose money and gain money, but I am not gaining time.
So check this out. This is very good. So now I know that's a huge value of yours and that's important. Great. Well, the good news is solving those 3 problems and making sure that I can save you time because I'm going to do all this with you. And I've been doing it for 15 years, so I'll make it happen really quick. Let's just say, give me a range, give me an actual number. Let's just say in the next 12 months, what could that be worth to you? If we solve those 3 problems, what would that be worth to you?
Well, I would say minimum $1 million.
Minimum $1 million. Great. Now here's the trick, in a good way. It doesn't cost $1 million to hire me, right? And most people get a good little chuckle out of that. They feel relieved.
Yep.
And I go like, we could spend half a day together and solve this in 4 or 5 hours, and it's $5,000. Does that sound fair?
Sounds like a winner.
Great. When do you want to get started?
Yeah. Bang.
That is the simple 5-step close. So you can apply this concept to what you do.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Talented 12th grader that's on the phone with your parents. Here's what's going on. Okay. You're going to the Masters and you need a really good coach. Okay, here's the deal. And those prices can vary.
Mm-hmm.
Those packages can vary.
Yeah.
You know, a purse at the Masters is worth a shit ton of money.
Yes, it
Excuse
is.
my French. So you always have to position your pricing in comparison to the value that you provide. But again, what do you want? Psychological trigger. What's the trigger? Does that sound fair? That's why I asked the question. Because if someone says, yes, that sounds fair, then the next question is, when do you want to get started? And then most people are like, I don't know, next week? And I go like, yeah. What day would work? I could do Tuesday. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Then I go like, all right. So whenever you're bridging, if you're doing this digitally or you're not sitting there with someone, I just want to confirm a couple things on your contact info. So this is the best email address for you, right? The one we came in on here. Yes. Okay, great. Now, this is the best phone number for you, the one I called. Is this the best one? It's not like some VoIP number or something. No. That's my cell phone number. Okay, perfect. And then as far as payment, how do you want to handle it? You want me to text it to you now and you can just do it while we're on the phone? Or do you want me to just take it over the phone and I can plug it in the system and do it? This is how I get people to going from 100, 200, 300K a year to $700, $800, $9,000, $900,000 a year. Because most people don't have a problem with their skill. They just don't understand a simple process to get people through the pipeline because they have overcomplicated what they do. Humans make things complex. Mm-hmm. I have the rare neurodiverse capabilities of all the unique challenges I have in that to be able to just see all the puzzle pieces and put them together super fast. Mm-hmm. It's like I have clients right now. I mean, I just had a guy, he just hit me up earlier. He's like, yeah, I closed, I think I posted this on Instagram. He's like, I closed a $81,000 deal. This guy started with me 3 weeks ago. And he hasn't closed anything in 6 months.
Wow.
It's not his skill. It's that he doesn't have a process. And this is just like a dude. He's a videographer. Like, I mean, you get a couple of those deals. I have another guy, he has a $150,000 deal lined up. I mean, he's 19 years old.
Wow.
And so working with me brings all the leverage and expertise that I have, and I can apply that skill set to the talent and expertise of the person. I guarantee you, I'm like the best hype man ever when it comes to this stuff, because I guarantee you that you're not charging enough. The number one challenge that I have for people is tell me the most expensive thing you've ever sold. Like, give me the number. I go, great, now add a 0. That's what we're going to sell. And their heads about fall off their body. They can't believe it. Wait, how are we going to do that? I'm like, this is the concept. I love Grant Cardone's book, 10X, which is you never change the target. You just figure out how I need to get there. Mm-hmm. And so this dude went from selling $500 a month content packages to $150,000 consulting deals. And that's coming with my expertise that's building the highway underneath his talent. I always said I wanted to be the entrepreneur's version of Scooter Braun. I wanted to be the Scooter Braun to someone else's Justin Bieber. That's what I'm insanely talented at. And I became, instead of trying to be the artist, I figured out that my place was to be the gallery owner. And so I just repositioned myself to create a collective of geniuses. And I'm telling you, man, it's
good for you, man.
It's crazy. It's a ton of fun too. You can see I'm very energized by it. Yeah.
Hope dealer.
Possibly. Yeah. Dope healer.
Hope is an underrated word in our vernacular. Mm-hmm. And I sell hope. You sell hope. Mm-hmm. But what does that mean to you? What does it mean, one, for that it is underrated, and then two, what does it mean to be a hope dealer?
The reason why hope is massively underrated is because people, I think, have lost faith in what's possible. A lot of people settle for next best just because they lack the confidence and the belief that they can be better. Mm-hmm. That's the ethical crime that I was talking about earlier. I see it from a very different vantage point because I've overcome a lot. And so I guess there's a natural expectation that, you pull on your boots by the bootstraps, and you just figure out a way, and you just never quit and keep on pushing. I mean, I have so many stories, man, whether it's my kids being involved in the shooting or whether it was, having my business partner steal $2 million from me, losing $1 million in 2 days when COVID hit. I mean, these are just all within the last like 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
My brother relapsing, and dealing with that. There's just a lot of stuff, man. But hope is the only thing that gets me through. If you've ever studied the energy chart, that's Power versus Force. Mm-hmm. It's an incredible book. But there's a chart in there that shows how energetics work. And there's a scale of energy. And it's based on emotions. Well, there's a split line right in the middle, which is like 0. Then you have low frequency. So shame, guilt, condemnation, judgment, all those things. Those are like really low frequency of energy. Then you have the ones at the top, which are like joy and elation and awakening and enlightenment, if you want to call them those things. Gratitude, right? Those are all up in high frequency. The middle line where it separates, the first thing that brings you into a higher frequency is courage. Mm-hmm. So hope, for me, I have this principle of where I encourage 5 people a day. That's just like my mantra. It's what I do. Encourage 5 people a day. And the reason why is because the encouragement doesn't help you necessarily build your business. It just changes you. So now you're in a mode of service. You're in a mode of how can I serve? How can I help? How can I show up for you? And that was coming off of the biggest sales week I ever had in my life. My mentor said, we've tried everything. We've done all the systems. We've done all the stuff. We've built all the things. Nothing seems to be working. And this is right after COVID. I lose $1 million. He said, I don't know, dude. You just go encourage 5 people a day. And I was like, okay, I did it. In 35 days, I did $500,000 in sales in a week. It changed me because it put me in a position of service when I was at my hardest moment. That's the translation of what I believe hope is. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. What is that? It's separation from God. Ooh. So hope for us is the thing that keeps us tethered to the promise that we know of the things that can happen for us in our lives. And that's what I try to do. My encouragement is a form of giving people hope. One more day, give one more rep, do one more thing, give it one more shot. I've gone through, so many challenges in life, whether it's business, relationships, opportunities, business success, business failure. I am unbelievably ruthless and stubborn because I just keep getting back up. People are like, how the hell do you do it? And I'm like, I don't know. There's some crazy thing inside of me of where I just hope that if I just give it one more day, give it one more shot, do one more rep, that it's going to be better. I don't know. It's instilled in me. Yeah. I don't know even where it comes from. But really the hope dealer concept is about knowing that people's hearts are sick if they don't have it. So what can I do? Give encouragement. Courage is the first step to a higher frequency so that I can help people stay above the line in life.
Man, that is freaking awesome.
Isn't that dope?
That is unbelievable. Yeah. This is not a question that I ask a lot of people, but I respect the heck out of where your brain goes. I am a spiritual person, and I have a great affinity for God. My biggest issue is not God, but the people who represent God.
Yep.
Right. So you went on this. I know that you're a Christian, but you spent a year with a Taoist monk.
Yeah.
Right. Which is not necessarily the most Christian thing, right? And I've always had this problem of judgment.
Yeah.
Which is, how can one religion say that another religion's bad if somebody in that other religion is doing godly things? Mm-hmm. I've really had a big problem with that. Like, how can you say, Christian, how this Buddhist is because he doesn't believe in your God, but man, he or she is doing incredible godly work.
Yep.
How can you damn them to hell? Right. Mm-hmm. So in your journey toward faith, and you know where I'm going to lead to this. So I like, where did you find the Taoist monk, and what did you gain out of chasing that level of spirituality?
Yeah, man. So, I mean, just for context, my dad was a drug dealer who found Jesus. So my dad was almost 30 years old. He went to like Holy Ghost, shake him down, shout him out, revival with Ernest Angley. And my dad got saved, radically changed his life from dealing drugs that day, stopping, next day following Jesus. I mean, it was that simple. So I had a pretty radical view about how faith works, which also came with and I love my dad, still my spiritual mentor to this day, but came with a certain amount of legalism based on fear. Because my dad, of course, his natural thought was, I don't want my kids to end up like I did. So if I can restrict all of these things like Ninja Turtles and secular music, they're going to turn out better. And that's what the church taught, by the way. Because my dad was an open book. He was a sponge. Tell me what I need to do and I'll do it. Athlete background, same thing. So it's just kind of amazing. So I grew up in a very pretty strict religious construct. And then I went into ministry and I was a pastor for 8 years. So that's also a part of my history from 19 until I was like 26, 27, spent my time in ministry. So I had to let go of a lot of belief systems and things that I thought that I knew that I was right on, because I have always had a sense of curiosity of like being open to other perspectives. It's a part of having really good empathy is curiosity. And empathy and curiosity are tied together because it's the key to the heart. So it gives me the ability to inspect someone's heart and to be able to have discernment and go like, is this coming from a good place or not? I think most religious infrastructures say you have to follow our way because that's how they keep people's attention. If you don't follow our way or our rules, you can't bend them. So therefore, you can't observe what those other things are. So just stay away from it. And it's a big red button. Don't ever touch it. I just go like, so, but tell me why. And they go like, well, because I told you so. And I'm like,
That's not working.
see, that's the wrong answer. That's never going to work for me. So part of it is, and I love this, is my dad trained and taught us how to inspect things on a spiritual level. When I was 8 years old, I would be in a prayer closet and my dad would be doing exorcisms. He did it for 25 years on people. Wow. I have an insane level of spiritual understanding and discernment that most people won't carry just because of the experiences that I had. And so my dad would say, the reason why we bring kids around for spiritual activation is because, oppressive forces hate children because they're pure. So when kids pray, and this is all biblical, you can go look it up and find it, but the prayer of an innocent child, someone who's bringing that purity, has like an insane amount of activation spiritually. So that's why, like, there's a lot of things politically and otherwise where, like, kids are getting more indoctrination about things that are making their minds look in the other direction, and it's not preserving the purity. It's actually muddying the water. And I think that's a big attack on any type of spiritual category. But anyways, I digress, and I'll go into this point. After I exited church, I probably felt a lot on how the disciples felt when Jesus left and they were left to kind of fend for themselves. I had a panic attack under my desk my last day of ministry. We grew a church from 1,000 to 10,000 people every weekend. And I realized that the people in the church were the cog of the wheel that made it happen. So all the goals that the church had and what they wanted to excel at and exceed in, the people were the thing. The guy who ran security every single weekend for 7 years in a row and probably missed his kids' games and whatever else just became overlooked because there was an expectation that he would show up and do it. It was just like hit me like a ton of bricks of like, holy crap, the people I came to serve have just become a commodity. And that crushed me. Which also crushed this concept of the evangelical way being the only way. Because I said, this is not Jesus. Gandhi said, I love your Jesus, but I struggle with your followers. It's the same thing. And so I guess I ran from God for like 7 years. I had no relationship with God whatsoever. And so I have these interesting things of where I'll say Jesus and drop an F-bomb in the same sentence. It's not intentional. It's just like my life paths are weirdly overlap in a way of I'm still seeking redemption, right? And I don't think that those things disqualify me. Why? Because God looks at the heart. I've had more people come up to me and say, how the heck do you do that? Where I can see your heart and I know you have a heart for God. And at the same time, you have this thing. I said, because I don't live by the same rules that you live by. I don't judge myself. That's my superpower. God, so I don't judge anybody else. I don't give a crap what they do, which leads me to the point on like why I met with a Taoist monk. Well, because I watched his YouTube videos when I was in an Airbnb for 4 weeks and my wife and I thought we were getting divorced. You judge it by its fruit. The dude saved my marriage.
Yeah.
And so I had to contact him and be like, dude, I've got to coach with you and I got to learn from you because I know I got a lot of stuff wrong and I need help. So Jesus will often send the most unique characters into your life. I didn't go seeking a Taoist monk. I found a Taoist monk who had 45 years as a background of being a clinical psychologist and worked with people to understand their challenges in life and their belief systems. And so I just judge it by its fruit, which is this something that's meaningful? Is there any type of, I have animal instinct on an intuitive level of sensory. Like I've studied myself. I've taken more personality tests and assessments than most people will ever do in 10 lifetimes. But I really know myself. And so I can spread that discernment and say, how does this feel for me? And how does this person feel to me? This guy was the most positive interruption I've ever had in my life. And most people are missing out because they're living by the rules and regulations of some old white dude on a stage saying, this is the way you have to live, and you can't talk to these people, and you have to do these things, and you have to follow these rituals. And I'm like, isn't that why Jesus flipped the tables? Didn't he say having a direct connection with me is the thing that you need? Didn't he calm the storm by standing up and saying, well, I'm going back to bed. You guys have more power in your pinky than you ever realize. If we could really tap into the uniqueness of who we are, a lot of people struggle with the concept of people who say, well, I am God. It's like, well, no, I'm not replacing God. But he said, Christ in you is the hope of glory. I better own that.
Yeah.
I better own that Christ is in me. I better own the identity that I have sonship and collaboration with God, that I'm a co-creator with him. If I don't, I'm assuming the same thing as the disciples did when they said, save us, save us. He's like, I've already given you more than you could ever imagine. Do something, you know? Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of these things. Yeah. But is this resonating?
Yeah. I mean, it's, like unbelievably. Vulnerability and suffering. You had to endure something in March of 23, I'm sorry. Golly,
that's
24
right.
already.
Crazy.
Yeah. That it's a nightmare to think about for literally every human on the planet, no matter what color, what religion, what preferences you have.
Yep.
It's the biggest nightmare of all. And it exposed, one, a level of vulnerability inside of you and a level of suffering on a million fronts. And I've listened to you speak one in our TED Talk, mm-hmm. and I've listened to everything you've done that I can find anyway, about how the suffering that you've endured, you were able to look at it from the perspective of the person that came into the school and did all the damage, the people that lost lives, and the people that came out unscathed. Mm-hmm. And I know that you went into great detail, especially on Nick's podcast too, on like all that you went through. So we don't have to go there. But in the process of dealing with these two gigantic words that no human really likes to face, mm-hmm. which is vulnerability and suffering, what is it that you learned that you didn't even realize you were actually learning when you were going through the training with the Taoist monk, mm-hmm. to then get the ultimate test? Not much long after that. What did you gain from those two words in that?
One of the things the Taoist monk taught me that absolutely set me up, I stopped my therapy 2 weeks before the school shooting happened at my kid's school, which is insane to think about, all that preparation, over 100 therapy sessions, in a year, really intense stuff. Everything boils down to this: you are the creator of your emotions. You're not the victim of them. When it comes to suffering and when it comes to vulnerability, it comes down to telling the truth. It comes down to observing things, holistically, assessing every side, the prosecutor, the defender, the judge, the defendant, the prosecutor, you just look at everything. And I think the hardest thing for people to understand and to grapple with this is the statement that this is good. It is so upside down, sideways, and backwards, and I will likely offend a lot of people by saying that. It's the frame I chose to take, because that's how I take everything in my life.
Yeah. This
is not happening to me, it's happening for me, no matter how hard. Remember the first time I ever got sued in business for something I didn't even do. It's one of those things you face, you're like, where did this even come from? This is not even true. This is complete BS. And I stopped and I said, this is good. And it just changes the energy of the thing. One of the other things that Sharon Barnes, who is integral in my life as a therapist, and she works with highly gifted, highly creative, twice exceptional people in Colorado. And she said, you cannot change the energy that comes at you that essentially is negative. You have to recalibrate it. It's going to come. The question is, what can you do with it? Treat it like an art project. I got this messy canvas. What can I do with it? And so that also allowed me to look at the scenario and, like a lightning rod, make the decision, make the shift. And I had to tell myself, this is good. In the face of the most ridiculous, horrific, horrible. I was supposed to be there an hour later than it happened. You know, like Dr. Kuntz was like, I mean, when we moved from Colorado, we met with her. I was like, this woman's going to save my daughter's life, like in more ways than I understand. Because my daughter has ADHD, she has dyslexia, there's all these things. And Dr. Catherine Kuntz has worked with kids who are highly creative, highly gifted, twice exceptional. She's worked with those types of kids for her whole career. And she said to me, she said, Nick, a child's uniqueness on these levels will never disqualify them from being a student in school. And I was just like, you are literally next to Mother Teresa in my book. You are one of the greatest human beings of empowerment I have ever met in my life. She doesn't get nearly enough credit or conversation about her legacy, in my opinion, based on what she's done for not only this community, but for kids holistically in the books that she's written, all on helping kids who are neurodivergent and have a lot of uniqueness about them. But anyway, it was an incredibly challenging situation because what most people don't know is my wife's father was also murdered when she was 3. So this is the second time we've had to deal with this, which also gives me a different perspective. Mm-hmm. You know, like I don't go to my wife and say, hey, that's good that happened. That's my journey. I'm not asking anyone else to adopt my beliefs. And it's harder for me to look at what happened with her father because he did die versus when I look at my kids and they're alive.
Yeah.
And so it's very hard. But I look at it and go like, okay, this is what David would ask me. Okay, I've told him, David, I'm struggling with self-esteem. And he would say, okay, I don't understand what that means. I'd be like, what do you mean? You've been in this for like 50 years. He's like, no, I don't understand what you mean. Explain it to me. I go, I don't know. I just feel like, he said, see, you just said, I feel. So what you're doing is you're allowing your feelings to override your belief system. So this is the equation of life. And this is what he gave me that absolutely changed everything. He said, Nick, life events will happen. We're all going to have life events that happen. If your emotions immediately follow your life events, then your belief system is going to be construed and screwed up and disempowering for the rest of your life. He said, this is what you're doing. He said, what I want you to do is exchange your beliefs for your emotions in the equation. Life events will happen. The question is, what is your belief? Your belief is the grand anchor to the emotional pendulum that we all face. High, high, highs, low, low, lows. Like the belief system is what causes about a 10-degree variance instead of 180 degrees. So I assessed it, and my belief was, this is good. If my kids are alive, this is good. If they're not, this is good. No matter what happens, this is good. And I just absorbed that and took that on very, very quickly. So what happened was my emotional state was not impacted. Was I grateful to see my kids? Absolutely overjoyed.
Yeah.
You know, was I absolutely like unbelievably shattered when I heard about what happened to our community? Yes, massively. But at the end of the day, my belief system has to be the same, that this is happening for me and for others, and that there's something better that's going to come out of it. The level of resilience that my kids have will be greater. You know, we're still dealing with night terrors. We're still dealing with this stuff doesn't just go away. Yeah. But if I am not stable, confident, with a healthy perspective, ready to face the challenges that we're having in life, with a perspective that brings me out of it, that will get me through it, like the buffalo who looks at the storm and runs through it, you got to have something that's going to empower you and anchor you. And for me, that's what it was. I could not allow myself to become a victim underneath the thing. Because if I go into the situation and I go like, this thing can override me, then I have little faith. Because God says that with God on your side, then, you know, what can the enemy do to you?
Yeah. That's interesting. Like that has a little bit of Deion Sanders in it.
Does it?
Well, Deion is up there. Because you didn't make me, you can't break me.
Yeah, 1,000%.
And man, I totally dig what that guy's preaching, coaching.
Yeah.
And you know, it also has Jocko Willink. You know, Jocko made a lot out of a 6-minute video called "Good," right? But the thing I will always try to use this clip is that his is a militaristic explanation, but this is a life explanation that covers military, sport, life. I mean, that was that is an unbelievable explanation of vulnerability and suffering. And I think there's this weird balance as a coach, especially as a coach of youth largely, of shielding, I don't want to use the word shield, but I guess it's close to shielding kids from the inevitable brutality of the suffering that is guaranteed to come in your life.
Yep.
And keep their hopes and dreams innocent and fulfilling and thriving, while also trying your best to prepare them honestly to the inevitable punches in the face that you can get. And in my current situation, like I've on a pretty unique 3-year run of literally doing what is the right thing and getting punched in the face for doing the right thing.
Yeah.
To the point where I sat down with one of my closest friends and I'm like, I'm afraid to make a decision right now.
Yeah.
Because every single thing that I've done was to protect or do the right thing in a certain situation, either for others or for myself, and they've literally imploded in my face. And he's like, you got to have faith in the fact that your intentions were pure, and what didn't kill you, you will learn from it. You didn't lose.
Yep.
You're just learning because maybe your calling's a little bigger than being a golf coach or being whatever it is that you might view me as.
Yep.
That's what then spurred the energy behind my TED Talk. Was that is like, I want my kids to know that I believe in them and that a lot of the things that I have been able to accomplish has been out of sheer will and desire and faith that I can without, I always like Tony Robbins. I've never met him in person, but he's made a huge impact on my life. Say yes and figure it out.
Yep.
I am not afraid to say yes to anything that interests me, even if I have no idea what I'm doing. Like I just love that's the adventure for life for me.
Yeah.
I want them to have that, but like they've watched this unfold, but they don't yet understand because there are certain things that they just can't understand about the battle that day-to-day life brings, and how just because you've followed your process, you've put it through the system, and you've literally just did the very best you could, and it implodes. It's hard not to take that personal, but you can't take it personal.
That's right.
What are your feelings on coaching youth through the inevitable travails of struggle while keeping their mind on a bigger, more beautiful picture?
I start with the first thing, which is suffering is guaranteed. Like I think that's one of the great lessons that I learned. And I was drowned in a pool when I was 5, and I had to fight for my life to stay alive. There was a chick with special needs who was like 16 on top of me and I was like waterboarded at 5 years old.
Ooh.
It's really intense, but I had to fight for my life, which gave me that unique DNA blueprint of survival.
Yeah.
And wild scenario, but what's cool about that, and I look at my life now, is like I just automatically know how to survive and make it through. I just figure it out. My wife always tells me, I don't know how you do it, but like doesn't matter what we face, you always figure it out. And I'm like, it's a relentless pursuit, but it's also navigating instinctually what the right decisions are. And so with my kids, it's number one to understand that adversity is guaranteed. Suffering is guaranteed. Life is going to be hard. This is what my parents tried to shield, I think, us from, is the lessons of like the things were going to be really hard. We observed it, but I never understood my father until I became one. Never. I never understood the stress that he faced, the pressure that he faced, the challenges that he faced, why he'd come home from work in a fit and things were challenging. Well, my dad has an 8th grade education. He wanted to do better for his family. He did the best that he knew to do with the hands that, the cards that he was dealt. And I'm sure he came home every day from, a pretty blue collar job trying to figure out like, how the heck am I going to get our family to the next level? And that's probably why he was pissed.
Yeah.
And then when, me and my brothers would, leave a bunch of shit around the house, it's like, no wonder he'd be pissed, because he's busted his ass literally 24/7 trying to figure out how to raise us the right way, how to do the right thing, how to make more money, how to solve more problems, how to show up for his family, how to show up for his siblings, how to show up for his parents. I mean, it's a lot of pressure. You never understand that until you're a parent and they get it. And I say, why did my parents tell me that parenting was so hard? And I thought about it. I'm like, well, because then I probably wouldn't have had kids. So that's probably why they didn't. It's the greatest gift, and it is a big challenge. But that's one of the things that for my kids that I tell them. I remember when my daughter, we brought her home after everything that happened at the school, and we were sitting in a room with her, and we had to explain to her what was going on. So we had intervention with therapists and group communications with the school, and they were like, here's the deal. If your kids are between these ages or these things, like, you need to explain to them, because as soon as they get back to school, they're going to hear it all. So you've got to prep them now, talk through it with them. And we had to say, Dr. Koontz died. What? They thought someone broke in, like a burglar. They didn't understand. Not all the kids understood. And so we had to explain that to her. And then she just started crying and crying and crying. And I was like, just holding space, and it's okay. You get it out. Like, what's coming up for you? And she said, well, Dr. Koontz's dog, Covey, it lost its mommy. And all of a sudden, like, I just observed, again, having that relationship with my daughter allowed me to observe, where was her suffering? Where was her empathy? Where were the things that she was dealing with, going through and trying to understand? Was that this dog no longer has its mom. And that was what hit her first, is, oh my gosh, we lost Dr. Koontz, but then also this crazy amount of empathy for something that most people would overlook. And that just showed me how she was wired. And so I said, okay, yes. And part of that conversation was, I said, London, happy people don't do bad things. So suffering, part of our role and responsibility, and part of what we need to make sure that we do for others, is that we're kind and that we love others. This is someone who really struggled to understand that they were loved, and that they were cherished by other people, and they chose to do something that was really bad. And I want to remind you that happy people don't do bad things. And so for her, understanding the principle of happiness, I think, is just where your life expectations of what you think, the way you think life should be, matches your experiences. So I'm like, so what are your expectations? How are you going to show up in the world? How are you going to, and then let's match those experiences. If our character, which is in between those two things, doesn't align, then we can't say one thing and do another. We also can't expect this result but not do these things. And it was a beautiful moment to be able to start embedding these principles in our life. But I think that's a core part of it, man, is experiences and expectations. They have to link. I think that's what produces the most amount of happiness. But as a parent, leading our kids through things that people are going to say things, they're going to do things. I think we have to preserve and protect them as much as we can, while also not sheltering them. It's part of the challenges that we go through as parents. We want the best for them. But definitely what is not the best for them is not allowing them to learn young. My kid's learning this lesson now. I mean, what are they going to go do in the world? They overcame death. I mean, it's infinite as far as opportunities. And I really hit them, like, I have one son, 3 daughters. With my son, I hit on this really hard with him, is I tell him, like, I am responsible to lead you in a way of your highest capabilities and of your highest character. That's my job in your life. So if you're not demonstrating those things, I'm going to be hard on you. There's going to be times where you really don't like me. Trust me. I said, but I want you to understand why I'm doing it. It's because I believe in you that much. And if I have to be the bad guy who believes in you in order to call you to a higher level, I will fully accept that responsibility, because it'll make a lot more sense for the next 80% of your life. But for the first 20, we're going to have our moments. So I spend a lot of time with him. I take him to Waffle House like 3 to 4 times a week. Because I know that depositing that now will change the relationship of the future. He'll understand why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. And for my daughters, it's more unique, and it's a little more challenging because there's 3 of them. And so splitting the time and figuring out those opportunities are unique, but I'm figuring it out.
Yeah. Hurt people.
Yeah.
But for hurt people to hurt people, the in between, the key is the hope dealer.
That's right, man.
You got to be able to deal hope, because a really hurting person who hasn't hurt anybody yet is only one hopeful, kind gesture away from recognizing they don't need to hurt somebody else.
That's right, man. That's what I say, dope healer. You can see it over there on the wall. Hope dealer, dope healer. By dealing hope, you give people healing. And I remember in high school, I used to bump into these kids. I was part of the cool crowd that was like, popular kids. And then I was always the bridge to the ones who were overlooked. Always. It's just in my nature to do that. Everywhere I've ever been, it's always been that way. Yeah. So I sat with this kid one day, sat next to him on the floor, and I said, hey, man, everybody calls you Xbox because you wear an Xbox hat every day. I said, what's your name? He's like, my name is Eric. And I said, well, Eric, it's nice to meet you, man. Do you mind if I sit here with you and just hang out? And he's like, no, that's fine. And it's just holding space. I just sat with him. Yeah. And to just be with him was enough. That's why we shouldn't overlook a smile, a kind text message, a voice note. Even to the people that you think have it all together, and trust me, they don't, just encourage 5 people a day. It'll change the world. I believe it.
100%. Like, to me, you just, like, we must have been brothers from another mother. Because I was in the athlete cool group.
Yep.
But I always loved everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And every group, I've always said, like, everybody has an unbelievable God gift.
That's right.
And I'm always in search to find out what that is in each person. I just love people. And in a world that is losing that gift, maybe that's what allows me even more fun things to occur in my life, because I'm not afraid to curiously investigate somebody's struggle because somebody chose not to ask them what makes them tick in a curious manner.
Mm-hmm.
And it has brought me so much good in my life, because I want people to know, like, you have to understand something. Eddie Vedder has brought millions, if not billions, of people a level of connected joy because he wrote a song or songs that resonate so deeply with them. But when he was 16 years old, he was made fun of, he was bullied, he was treated terribly, and his mom lied to him about who his dad was.
Wow.
Which is the whole basis of the song Alive.
Wow.
The song Alive is about finding out that the person he thought was his uncle is on his deathbed, and his mom says, "I just need you to know that it's not your uncle. This is actually your dad, and the person you thought your dad is not."
Wow.
Right? And like that, the disillusion that you've been lied to at that level, and you're already being bullied and made fun of because you don't fit in.
Yep.
Allow that amount of pain and suffering and disorientation from what we consider fundamental life. The person who's supposed to give you the deepest amount of love knifed you at a level that is so hard to understand. Allowed him to create an art that takes billions of struggling, broken-hearted people and turn that into an icon.
That's right. It's amazing, dude.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's what, like, when I listen to stories like that, that's what spurred me into, I want to hear what makes, for somebody who's considered not very great, I'm going to find out what makes you great so that you can, if you don't already know, that you can have faith that you can do it. Maybe I'm going to be able to provide you just a little impetus to make you chase greatness because you're afraid of the imposter syndrome. Maybe I'm not that good. Maybe I can encourage you to believe that you actually are that good.
Imposter syndrome, by the way, you just mentioned that. I just want to tap into that for 2 seconds for someone who's listening. All imposter syndrome is you're telling yourself a lie about who you really are. That's it. So if you're like, I think I'm feeling imposter syndrome, that's because you're lying to yourself. And usually it's in translation with your greatness and not with your inability. Mm-hmm. You feel that because you're in between that stage of who you used to be and who you're becoming. And so then you feel the imposter syndrome and say, no, I should return back to here. No, 10 times more aggressively in the direction that you're going. That's what will solve the problem. It's never returning back. You never go back to the thing that broke you. You never go back to a previous state because that's the process of growth. It's supposed to be uncomfortable. It's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be where we're having to have hope and faith and all these beautiful elements around trusting the impossible. And, again, look at, Elon Musk. He's such a great example of this in our society. It's someone who just dared to be great. He did. And look at what he did. And there's so many more people who could do the same. And, activating that inside of people, dude, that's like the greatest thing in the world.
That's the magic of life.
Yeah,
that's what drives me.
Yeah.
And it's so compelling to listen to your story because it's so like I feel like it's like I'm time traveling and I'm like in the same ship as you going through life. And you to me, one of the greatest books I ever read was called With Winning in Mind by Lenny Basham. He's an Olympic rifle shooter.
Wow.
And he was the number one shooter in the world in 1968, and he choked in the Olympics.
Wow.
And he spent the next 4 years of his life creating a mental management scenario. And then in 1972, he won the gold medal.
Wow.
All right. And he doesn't even play golf, but he ended up running into a guy at an event who played on the PGA Tour. Mm-hmm. And they got talking. And the very next week, he won for the first time.
Dang.
So he tells the story of Lanny Basham. Then the next week, a guy heard that story on Sunday, called Lenny Basham on Monday, Tuesday. They spent 2 days together. That guy wins the next week.
Holy cow.
So now he's starting to get popular. The next winner also has just recently gone to see Lanny Basham. So I buy his book. And it's one of the very best books, but he boiled something down for me that I thought was super duper important, is that all of your God's gifts, all of you, is your potential, minus interference equals your self-image.
Wow.
And your self-image is who you show up as every second of every day. And you have to work on reducing interference. Interference is other people's opinions that you're holding as true, your own opinions that you're holding as true that are not fact-based, and anything else that you're doing to numb who you really are because you're afraid of what it is. Most of the time it's really good, but you're afraid that what if what I think is really good turns out to not be really good, which is ultimately interference of what God gave you.
That's right.
And so, like, I try to get people to, like, anything that you're doing that is not cultivating and watering God's gifts is a slap in the face to the Creator that gave it to you in the first place.
That's right.
And that's all I push on my players and the people that bring me in business-wise, is like, your gift is this. Anything else that you're doing that's taking away from this is the interference, which is ultimately the true outcome / self-image of where you're at right now.
Wow, dude. That is so powerful, dude. I hope people really get this. This is huge.
Because that is the answer. And like where it really gets jacked up is that when I am who I am, and I've tried my best to reduce all interference and make decisions based off of fact, and that then turns out to be an epic fail. That's where the self-image can really get burnt, beat up, and crushed, because you didn't allow the interference. It was just something that suffering is guaranteed to happen. And I, for the longest time, took that personal.
Wow.
And I think a lot of people take it personal. How could my very best efforts, intentions, and studies, with no ill intent whatsoever, create an outcome so painful that extrapolates outward and maybe impacts other people that were not even involved negatively? How does that work? How's that fair? And you have to be good.
Yeah, dude.
And I could not wrap my head around saying good until I was 47.
Wow.
And it was so brutally painful what I was going through. And I just had to say, you know what? Screw it.
Yeah.
I am not going to take this personal anymore.
You know what? I want to tap into that for a second, because this is what freed me after taking on those freaking Larry Holm left hooks over and over. I said, if I follow Jesus, why would I have any expectation that my life would be fair? His life was very unfair, and I'm not hanging on a cross somewhere.
Possibly the most unfair.
So in the tension of that reality is where I allowed myself to be free, is because the model that I am embracing, the framework of life with suffering in mind that I understand, only ends one way. And that's that unjust, unfair, horrible things will happen to the best people in the world. The difference is how he kept on keeping on in the face of adversity. He just kept moving through it. And so if my blueprint is being a martyr, dying for the thing that I'm willing to believe in, whether that's for my family, my beliefs, entrepreneurship, spirituality, whatever, it all ends the same way. And it isn't fair. In Jesus' life, his was very unfair. And so, again, contrast, perspective, always pulls that spread. And I go like, well, I remember Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane saying, if there's any way, take this cup from me. This is just too much. If there's anything you could do, just help a brother out. I remember having those moments in my life, whether I made a crap ton of money, or I had $5 in my bank account on Christmas, and just going, I got enough for today. That's just, I got to stay in the pocket. That's what it is. An unbelievable amount of suffering and so many things undeserved. And then I look at Jesus and I go like, he didn't deserve anything that he got.
Yeah.
And so that creates a lot of tension in my world in a good way,
Mm-hmm.
of saying, okay, I could just go another day. I think part of the interference is removing the expectation.
Oh, 100%. That's
Yeah.
a cancer.
Yeah. The outcome,
The cancer of the outcome is expectations.
Yeah. And so like, that's been a big thing too, of like, well, I can have intentions, and we talk about intentions and how positive and important they are, but I also have to be able to release the outcome.
Yeah. So two of my favorite people, and they're bizarrely not even close to the same, but yet they've intertwined themselves, is Stephen Kotler, who is the foremost authority on flow state and elite performance in the world.
Wow.
And Eckhart Tolle, who's a very, very unique person as it pertains to living life.
Yeah.
Right. And so Stephen Kotler talks about flow state and the deepest, highest levels of elite performance requires an outrageous amount of things happening simultaneously that forced you to only be in the present.
Mm-hmm.
Eckhart Tolle has made a gigantic amount of money and success and acclaim off of immersive presence.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to navigate life requires a level of immersive presence. Like, you have to master now, because we can't rewind the tape and we can't fast forward the tape. You can only press play.
That's right.
So just press play.
Yep.
Because that rewind button and the fast forward button do not work.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this ultimate thing of elite performance, my sport there's 17 flow triggers. Golf only allows 2 of 17 to occur.
Wow.
But surfing, especially the highest level of surfing, all 17 are available to you.
Holy cow.
Like extreme mountain biking, all 17 are available to you, because at any point, any one of those 2 things occur, anything that you're doing that is not paying attention to the immediate presence will kill you.
Right. Absolutely.
So that's why surfers and extreme mountain bikers, many of them die in the act, because they're so addicted to the rush of flow.
Wow.
Because they have figured out how to harness immersive presence.
Wow.
And that is, to me, the gold. The golf swing, the technical pieces, all of how to is really cool. But to be able to tap into immersive presence, like, where am I right now? That is the actual fundamental of life.
Yep.
And you can then draw it in any direction that is palpable and important to you right now. That could be in your family, that could be in business, that could be in a sport, theater, whatever. And I will tell you without a doubt, before I took the stage at TEDx, 10 minutes before I was about ready to have a panic attack. Because
I believe you.
I put so much into it. And I was going through so much in my life that I just felt like God gave me this opportunity, and I'm going to get one. And this has the opportunity for it to be a crossroad turning point for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I put so much into it that I was getting in the way of me just doing what I've literally trained myself to do, like amazingly well. I mean, I was so prepared, and then I almost got in my own head. And what was really interesting, there was a person that came into the green room that put his arm on my shoulder, and he said, "Son, are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, not really. I'm really nervous." And he said, "Well, I just need you to understand something. The only person in the world that knows what you're getting ready to say today is you. So if it doesn't go well, like you start off kind of slow, or the only person that knows that you're not doing what you want to do is you. Everybody else is captivated. So just go out there and give it your all. And I can tell what you need to do. Let's stop out here and watch Shane talk. Let's get out here and watch." I never saw that guy ever again.
Wow.
I mean, ever. I went looking for him because I was trying to find him to thank him, because he It was an angel, man.
Wow.
It freaked me out because he was not there. I was the last person to speak before lunch. Yep. And then this guy just walks up, puts his hand on my shoulder and tells me this. And then I'm looking for him for literally 5 more hours.
Wow.
And Amanda doesn't know who it was. The people that I didn't see anybody.
Oh my God, dude.
And I'm like,
wow.
Whoa. But like, as soon as I got on the stage, Michael Jordan talked about it, the game that he made 6 3-pointers in the second quarter. He goes, he almost felt like he was watching himself from above. He actually can't remember anything that he was doing. Mm-hmm. Tiger talks extensively about he only remembers like pulling the golf club out of the bag, and he doesn't remember anything again until he put the club back in the bag. That a level of immersive presence is the only thing that allows true greatness to occur. Mm-hmm. And I just never forget. I literally couldn't, I don't even know if I could have got words out of about 10 minutes prior. I walk up on that stage, and then I've watched the rehearsal that I sent to Ted to get approved to do it, and I watched my speech. They were 2 seconds apart, and I said every word exactly the way I wanted to say it, and I don't remember anything except my Mike Tyson line.
Wow.
And the only reason I did that was I knew that was my bridge.
Yeah.
If I could get to Mike Tyson, I was home free. Mm-hmm. But I had to build. I had a lot of things I needed to build up. I had to get the recipe right.
Yep.
So when I hit him with it, it had the meaning that it needed to be, on top of the humor that broke up the severity of the conversation point that I was bringing up. Humor is a really important piece to life, and that moment I'm going to remember, and I'm going to use it as a lot because I believe that I got so far ahead of myself 10 minutes before I took that stage that when some godly figure put their hands on me and brought me back to now, it changed my life.
Yeah, man.
And to me, I just can't be thankful enough. Like those bizarre moments in life that let you know that the world in life is way bigger than you are, and it's so unbelievable to me. The things that I've had in my life, like one of my highlights is certainly being at the Wondery, sitting beside you, and all the cool things that we talked about that day.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't know you from jack squat. I mean, I didn't know. I mean, I actually thought you worked for Ted. I mean, I'm like, this guy is so deep. And then like, I'm not gonna. You're leaving, and you're like, I'm not going to be able to speak, but I appreciate it. And I'm like, wait a second, this guy's. I want to hear what this guy's got to say.
Yeah.
You're one of the greatest gifts of 2023 for me.
Oh, thank you.
Because where your mind is and how you view things is from a place that needs to be shown. Not because you need to be anointed as somebody better than anybody else. It's the fact that you show people what's possible in themselves. And you do it because you act on the best version of yourself every day. So I'm not saying that you're not great, because you are. But you have to, I'm sure you view yourself, I know what I bring. But I know that I'm not better than anybody else, but I'm not worse than anybody else either.
That's right.
And that's a big John Wooden thing for me. John Wooden was like, we are going to go into every basketball game knowing that we're here to win, but we're never underestimating anybody.
That's right.
Because we can be beaten by anybody, and we can beat anybody. Yeah. And I think that is a very valuable life lesson to have learned, is that you uplift people. And I tell people all the time, like, we're in a world where the higher you're trying to achieve, the more feet you're going to find on your head than you will find hands reaching down to lift you up. And you're a person that's on the top, leaning down with the hand, pulling people up. And that is one of my favorite things to promote in my life, is that there are way too many feet on your head, and there's not enough people reaching down, and you're a person that I have seen reach down, and I really appreciate what you bring.
Thank you, man. That's incredible. I really appreciate that a ton. That means a lot, and I've had a lot of people in my life who've done the same. You know, one of the greatest lessons that my dad taught me was that God will always make room for your gift. That's why I don't judge anyone. That's why I don't judge my scenarios. That's why I don't have to be a try hard. I don't do anything. I just show up because my dad, I remember he instilled it very early in our lives. God will always make room for your gift. So just stay out of the way, do what you're supposed to do, stay dedicated, show up. You know, I look at it now, it's the trust equation. Be credible, be reliable, and have a deep connection with people. If you can do that all based on their self-orientation of themselves, you're going to have, you know, the trust equation in life, and God will protect and promote you in any direction that he wants to take you. So there's a submission and a surrender to that, which also allows me to go, I may be getting stepped on the neck, but I'm going to give someone a hand up because someone else is pulling me up on the other direction, whether that's Mike Kim, Tony Grebmeyer, you know, David Meltzer. I mean, this incredible people in my life who have just shown up.
Yeah.
And so it's honestly, it's been, I think the greatest part for me in life is to do that. And while at the same time, like, you know, offering that support and that opportunity to people who I feel like are in a position where they can receive it. It's the hardest thing to when you give someone a compliment and then they go like, they try to tell you all the reasons why they want to invalidate it. Mm-hmm. I prefer the thank you.
Yeah, right.
You know, and so I've had to work really hard on that in my life because I would always do the invalidation process. So that's why I say thank you and I appreciate you, brother. And it's really incredibly kind. So thank you, man.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Well, the little like turn that I like to make in my podcast is now that we've understood the suffering that you've been through, which you've persevered through, and the process and systems that you like to employ to be the person that you are. That's what empties your cup. I like to talk about the things that fill your cup.
Yeah.
Historically and sociologically speaking, they're the things that bring large groups of people together, like-minded, to enjoy something, which is why 100,000 people show up to a football game. Broadway is always sold out. 75,000 people show up to see Taylor Swift. You know, when you were growing up or right now, who's your favorite musical act?
John Mayer, by far.
Man, underrated guitar player.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're, Jimi Hendrix, Eric Clapton. My gosh, John Mayer.
John Mayer's unreal.
He is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Love me some John Mayer.
Yeah.
Greatest concert you've ever seen?
Oh, man. Probably when I saw John Mayer for the first time in Buffalo, New York.
Wow. He puts on a heck of a show.
Dude, yeah. I mean, it was so immersive and there's so much happening. And then he's like playing the guitar while he's playing the piano. And I've seen him many times since. But I remember going to that just being absolutely dumbfounded. Like, that was the most insane thing I've ever experienced in my life.
Yeah. Man.
Seeing that dude live was unreal.
Yeah. Your favorite sports team?
Buffalo Bills, by far.
Greatest game you've ever seen in person?
Sports related?
Sports related.
I don't do the I don't know answer because I refuse to allow people to do that to me. Probably the first time I went to a hockey game, I got hit by a puck. It was like in an amateur game. And I remember they all just beat the hell out of each other right at the end. So I'm going to say that one. Amherst versus, I don't know who they were playing. I was probably like 10 years old.
Wow.
But yeah.
Puck.
Yeah, dude. I got a puck right to the shoulder. I thought someone like hit me. I looked at my dad like, why would you do that? He's like, dude, go up 2 rows. There's a puck. And sure enough,
there was the puck.
Yeah.
Favorite movie?
I'm really not a huge movie guy, but probably The Matrix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First Matrix.
Or Inception. Yeah, one of the other.
Oh, daggum. Right
Both
on.
of those, yeah.
The leader in the clubhouse is Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah?
Yeah. That's the first
Wow.
Matrix, and I love The Matrix.
Yeah, The Matrix. I would say that's by far that's going to win.
Yeah. Best book? Or favorite book?
Someone just asked me this yesterday. I had an interesting answer to it. Greater by Stephen Furtick.
There you go.
No one's going to have that answer, I promise.
No.
I would read it. It's amazing. It's, Greater. It's, dream big, start small, ignite God's vision for your life.
Bang. Love that. Your favorite vacation destination, that's the Control-Alt-Delete to your soul.
In a good way?
In a good way. Refreshes the batteries.
Yeah, probably 30A.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're a beach or a mountain guy?
Yeah, beach. I mean, because I think it's just, I'm a shores guy, so separation between two different things is really important in my energy type. Love the mountains, so Beaver Creek, if we're going to the mountains up in Denver, is absolutely amazing. Or like, 30A, we really loved going down to 30A. San Diego used to be it for me, but I just can't deal with California politics anymore. So unfortunately, they lost my vote.
Yeah, Beaver Creek is amazing. I spent a lot. Like I stopped giving Christmas gifts when my boys were 6 and 4.
Yeah.
And we turned it into an experience, and we used to go skiing.
Yeah.
And we stayed at the Weston Riverfront there.
Man. Oh, dude,
ski in, ski out.
Yeah, it's amazing, dude. That's one of our favorite spots we've ever been to. And that's
so
hands
good.
down.
It's so
amazing.
good.
Yeah.
So good. Well, my final question. It's been a long-standing, almost every podcast that I've done. Jason Silva, you know who Jason Silva is?
Yes.
Yeah, so Jason Silva is one of my favorites. And he posed this question years ago. He said, every human experiences 3 deaths. The day you find out you're going to die, the day that you die, and the final death is the last time anybody ever mentions your name. And then he looks into the phone and says, what are you doing to extend that third life? That hit me like a ton of bricks, because at the end of the day, I don't want to get so wrapped up in my legacy that that becomes like what I'm trying to do. But it's a really interesting way to look at how you live your life, because, we're not going to have any trouble remembering Michael Jordan 200 years from now, because he had a platform that most people will never have. But what can each particular person do to extend that third life? What does that mean to you?
I think you have to understand who the people are who are going to care enough to talk about you. I've helped so many people in business and in life, and they'll make these huge grand social posts about all these people who have helped them, and then they'll forget my name. I got over that a long time ago. My wife's still not over it. I'm over it, though, because I'm like, I don't care. My applause comes from a different place. I can't hear, like Gary Vee talks about this, I can't hear the boos, so I can't hear the applause. I don't hear anything. I just show up and do and get stuff done. So I don't really need the accolades, and I don't need, the opinions. I think it's an internal conversation of like, am I doing everything that I know that I can do today in order to accomplish the things that God's called me to do? If I'm going to extend anything, it's hopefully to point people to the fact that there's something out there that's greater than you, that loves you more than your mom does, and who has a plan and intention and purpose for your life. I'm not the classic guy to go evangelistic, but I will tell you that most people can trust me on a deeper level because of how I show up. So I think a life without having a sense of deep purpose in it, so belief in a higher power, and I don't care if you believe in Jesus, Krishna, or Santa Claus, if you just assume that we're out here spitting on a rock, you've lost. You've got to find a way to dig in, to say there's got to be something deeper here. Every path of entrepreneurship is in the pursuit of spiritual ascension. I believe it. Yeah. You have to master the world we live in first in order to what? Escape the matrix, and then get to a place of spiritual ascension where there's 3 different deaths. They'll try to cancel you. Then they'll try to put you in jail for something you didn't do, and then try to kill you. That's it. I mean, look at Trump's story. I mean, it's so simple. Look at Tate's story. It's so simple. Like, you can look at Martin Luther King's story. It's so, like, it happens. It's really interesting, these massive public figures. Jesus' story. So at the end of the day, I'm not really concerned about my name stretching. I think I'm just concerned about making sure that I live a life that when I arrive to a place, I don't say, man, there was more in the tank, and I wish I would have done something a little different. Yeah. And so I live my life in the tension of being present, eradicating regret by just doing what I think is the best thing to do, and I don't judge myself. Regrets are in the past, anxieties in the future. So what do I try to do? I try to do the best that I know to do. I can look back at a lot of times in my life of where I'm like, man, that was a hard situation in life. How I handled it, I can always go back. Dude, I'm not lying to you, Virgil. I can always go back and I can say, even the outcome that sucked, I still, in that moment, I did the best I knew to do. I do not have any scenario in my life where I look back and go, I acted against what I knew was right. Because I, by default, will go, this sucks, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Interesting. So, how can my listeners get in touch with you if they're interested in having you help them to bridge the gap between where they are and where they want to be?
Yeah, man. It's super simple. NickCavuoto.com. People can hit me up there. I always give out my phone number, 303-249-5002. If you're going to call me, text me, whatever, just say what's up. A lot of people don't do that, but at the end of the day, for me, I'm like, that's the easiest way for me to communicate. I don't use email. If you email me, I'll see it in about 8 years.
Yeah.
And then lastly, on social at Nick Cavuoto, just about everywhere. So
Excellent. Well, I can't thank you enough for sharing your story, buddy.
Thanks,
I
bro.
appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man. Much love. Appreciate you.
My
Thanks.
pleasure.